Okay, I'm going to try to do a quick video on how I tile my workpieces using Vcarve Desktop in my Bob's E3 CNC machine. So obviously starting in Vcarve Desktop, if you go to tile, it's going to tell you must be zeroed in this bottom left corner. It's not the one I normally work out of, but no big deal. It'll recalculate all your tool paths and everything, and then pull up tiling here. Yeah. Only tile 25 inches with desktop. And set your tile distance. Normally I would recommend trying to pick a distance that is going to end up in as many gaps as possible. Like if you're using words, you try to hit it in between. It just makes it a lot easier on yourself. That's obviously not going to always be possible. One thing that you're always going to want to do is use overlap. Always going to need to use overlap. If you don't, for some reason, I don't know if it's the program or if it's the machine, I'm assuming it's the program, when you get to the end of your tool path, it curves in. It just makes this weird little like 1/8 inch or 16 inch curve to the middle of the workpiece, and it just screws everything up. You can't get a perfect tiling. So I always use 0.1 inches as my overlap. And as long as you do kind of the rest of this method I'm going to show you, you're really never going to notice that, but it's necessary. And then go ahead and save. The program's great, obviously, because it's going to save this in individual files for you. And then over in Universal G-Code Sender, boom, as you can see, there's my 3 files. So open up your first one, and then down here to the workpiece. We're just going to use this as an example piece, but obviously you're going to go ahead and zero in the back left corner and do all of that as you normally do. Another important piece to keep in mind is I probably want to keep your router as far back as possible, but don't zero it at the actual home position. Move the router up this way at least the width of your bit, or whatever, a little more than the width of your bit. Reason being, if you're doing a really large artistic piece and it's going all the way to this edge here, Vcarve does not account for or if you don't account for the width of your bit to something going all the way back here, when you get there, you're going to hit your soft limit, and it's going to stop, and you're going to basically ruin your whole workpiece, because you'll have carved all of this and realize you didn't leave room for the bit to go to the edge or off the edge. So always move that up, like I said, whatever the width of your bit is, at least. I usually do 1/4 inch. All right, so now that that's zeroed, that you'll open up your first program in UGS, Universal G-Code Sender, and go ahead and run the first tile. All right, so I just ran this first program, and we're done with that. So now we need to actually move the piece, and this is obviously the hardest part about tiling, is how do you move the piece precisely. The way I figured out how to do it that works for me, because I'm only doing movements, in this direction. I'm never doing any side-to-side movements for my tiling purposes. But basically, I finished. I'm back at my home position, so I'll raise the bit up off the workpiece, and then you move the bit down the exact amount of your tile. So let's just assume in this instance I'm using 11-inch tiles. So I'm going to move the bit down 11 inches. Just jog the machine down 11 inches. Boom. All right, so now I have this position. I'll bring the bit down to touch the workpiece, and now I know exactly where 11 inches is at. So what I'll do is, you can mark this pretty much any way you want to. You can take a pencil and just mark it with a pencil. You put a piece of tape. I use my knife. I'll just make a little bit of a score right there, just enough that I can see it with my bare eye. But once this is finished and everything, you're never going to notice it. That it's there, and then you'll raise it up, return it back to 0, and bring it on back down. And then once it's back there, then you're going to go ahead and slide the workpiece. So now I've made this little knife mark here, so I can see exactly what 11 inches is. Get in there, line it up perfectly. You're probably wondering how I keep my piece from doing all of this. It's not currently set up this way because I'm working on some much larger pieces at the moment. But normally, what I do with my machine is I created a score line here on the spoil board for the exact angle my machine runs. The machine does not run perpendicular to this wall here. I made that mistake very early on and ruined a bunch of pieces by having them just slightly off. There's a bit of an angle here. So I scored this down so I know exactly what the angle is. And I'll take just a straight piece of some scrap wood and I'll screw it in right on that line. So right on my score line, so I know I'm perfectly straight. And then when I'm moving this, I'm sliding this, I'm just sliding it right along that guide. Can't mess that up. Boom, right to my knife mark, set it, run my next tile. Same exact process over and over again. Move it down the distance of my tile, touch the workpiece, make a mark, move it up, bring it back, slide it down, and rinse and repeat. That's how I've been able to do it so far fairly successfully. Hope this helps you out. Have a good one.